I never believed in love at first sight. Not until that night. It was supposed to be just another birthday party, loud music, glittering lights, strangers pretending they were happier than they really were. Bate dragged me there because, in her words, "You need a man who isn't allergic to commitment." I rolled my eyes, but I went anyway. That was the night I met Jeremy Carter. He walked in wearing a navy blazer and a smile that made people notice him without trying. He wasn't the loudest or the richest guy in the room, but he had this calm confidence that pulled my attention before I even knew his name. "You look like you want to leave already," he said, appearing beside me as if he'd been waiting for the right moment. I laughed. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who feels the same," he replied. "Smooth, too smooth." And I should have known smooth men usually come with sharp edges. But in that moment, I let myself enjoy it. We talked the entire evening: music, work, childhood stories, even our dumbest fears. It felt easy, natural, like I'd known him longer than a few hours. When he asked for my number, I didn't hesitate. That night, Bate whispered, "Girl, that man is trouble." I should have listened. Because what started as late-night texts and effortless chemistry quickly grew into something deeper. Within months, Jeremy became my routine, my safe place, my assumed future. And when he proposed a year later, right in front of the restaurant where we'd had our first date, I said yes without thinking twice. That was my first mistake. My second, introducing him to my family. Especially to Kate. Because the day she laid eyes on him, something in her shifted, and I didn't see it soon enough. If I had known that night would lead to standing alone in a wedding dress, abandoned and humiliated, I would have walked away before he ever said hello. Jeremy wasn't the man who rushed things. That's why, when he asked me out on our first official date, he planned everything down to the details: the rooftop restaurant, the slow jazz band, the quiet table near the city lights. It felt like something out of a cheesy romance movie, but somehow he made it feel personal instead of cliché. Months passed and we built a rhythm: weeknight dinners, Friday movie marathons, lazy Sunday mornings. He paid attention, the little things, like how I took my tea or how I needed silence before bed. It felt safe, something I hadn't experienced in years. So when our one-year anniversary arrived, and he took me back to the same rooftop restaurant, I thought it was sentimental, sweet, nostalgic. I had no idea what he was planning. After dessert, he stood up. My heart froze. "Darlene," he said softly, "you're the woman I didn't know I was waiting for." The room went still. People turned. My chest tightened. "I want a life with you," he continued. "Every morning, every night, every boring Tuesday, all of it. Will you marry me?" For a moment, everything blurred. The city lights. The murmured gasps. My own heartbeat. Of course I said yes. I said yes because I believed him. I said yes because he seemed stable, loyal, grounded. Everything my chaotic childhood taught me to crave. I said yes because I didn't know that someone else had already said yes long before I ever met him. Someone who shared my blood. Kate. My parents congratulated me when I told them the news. But Kate, she hugged me too tightly, smiled too sweetly, and said, "Wow, you really got lucky, didn't you?" Something about her tone sent a chill down my spine. Little did I know, the engagement ring Jeremy placed on my finger was the beginning of a countdown. One I didn't realize was ticking until it exploded on my wedding day. If I could rewrite one moment in my life, it would be the Sunday afternoon I decided it was time Jeremy met my family. The Morgans weren't the warm, fuzzy type. We were the smile for pictures and argue later kind. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Morgan, were old-school, proper, reputation-obsessed people who lived for approval, especially approval from their favorite child. Kate. We arrived at my parents' home, a large white house in suburban Maryland, perfectly manicured lawn, perfectly polished furniture, perfectly fake harmony. My mother greeted Jeremy like royalty. My father shook his hand with the seriousness of someone interviewing a CEO. Then Kate walked in. She froze when she saw him. Jeremy froze too, just for a second, but I noticed. Kate's smile stretched slowly across her face, like she had discovered something forbidden and delicious. "So," she said, her eyes lingering on him, "you're the man my sister has been hiding from us." I laughed it off. Jeremy laughed too. But Kate didn't stop staring. During dinner, she asked him too many questions, leaning in too closely, laughing too loudly at his jokes, brushing her hair back like she was auditioning for a role she wanted badly. I tried to keep calm, convincing myself it was typical Kate, always needing attention, always needing to be wanted. But the uneasiness settled in my stomach like a warning I chose to ignore. After dinner, Jeremy said, "Your family is interesting." That was the polite version. The truth was written all over his face. Kate had made an impression. The wrong kind. My parents, blinded by their favor for Kate, didn't notice anything. They never did. She was their sunrise, sunset, and everything in between. I should have trusted my instincts that night. I should have seen that spark in Kate's eyes for what it was, obsession mixed with entitlement. Because from the moment she met Jeremy, something in Kate shifted, and the thing she set her sights on next was mine. I wasn't imagining it. Kate's behavior changed the second Jeremy entered my life officially. She started showing up at my apartment unannounced, just to hang out. She brought Jeremy little gifts, like artisanal coffee or fancy ties, claiming she saw them and thought of him. She asked about his hobbies, his schedule, his favorite things. At first, Jeremy brushed it off. "She's just friendly," he said. But I knew Kate. She wasn't friendly, she was calculating. Kate had always been manipulative in subtle ways. Growing up, she took whatever she wanted: clothes, friends, attention, and my parents covered for her, praising her confidence while scolding me for overreacting. Old wounds reopened when I saw those same patterns again. Once I came home and found Kate sitting on my couch with Jeremy, laughing at something on his phone. When I asked what was funny, they both paused too long. "Oh," Kate said casually, "we were just watching a video." My stomach tightened. Jeremy changed the topic immediately. Little things kept piling up. Kate complimenting him too often. Jeremy defending her too quickly. My parents praising her warmth toward my future husband. Meanwhile, Bate and Stephen saw everything clearly. "She's inserting herself," Bate whispered one day. "More like hunting," Stephen added. I didn't want to believe it. Not because I trusted Kate, I didn't. But because the truth was too painful. My own sister might be trying to take my fiancé. Still, Jeremy assured me, "I only want you." The problem wasn't what he said. It was that he kept saying it, like he needed to convince himself. The weeks leading up to the wedding grew tense. Kate offered to help with planning, but her help always resulted in inserting herself somewhere she didn't belong, from flowers to cake tasting to venue walkthroughs. She was everywhere. Everywhere except in her own life. And the closer the wedding day came, the more Kate's obsession sharpened into something unmistakable. The night before the wedding, something happened that should have warned me everything was about to go terribly, painfully wrong. The night before the wedding was supposed to be joyful, laughter, jitters, last-minute preparations with my bridesmaids. Instead, it felt like walking through a storm I couldn't see but could feel pressing against my skin. Bate kept giving me strange looks. Stephen kept checking his phone like he was waiting for news he didn't want to say out loud. Something was off. That evening, after rehearsal dinner, Jeremy pulled me aside. "You know I love you, right?" he said suddenly. It felt out of place. Desperate. "Of course," I replied, squeezing his hands. "Tomorrow is our day." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We said our goodbyes, and he left with Paul, his best man. Everyone was preparing for the big day, except Kate, who magically wasn't answering calls. Later that night, I stepped outside for air, still in my robe, hair wrapped, makeup wiped off. The moon was bright, the street quiet, too quiet. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I recognized instantly. Kate, don't be too excited about tomorrow. My heart dropped. I called her immediately, but she didn't pick up. I messaged her again, no response. Bate read the text and said, "She's messing with you. Don't let her ruin your night." Stephen disagreed. "No, this is weird. This feels like something." The worst part, I felt that too. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Kate and Jeremy somewhere, doing something they shouldn't be doing. I told myself I was paranoid, jealous, emotional. Morning came, and I pushed aside the discomfort, focusing on my hair, my dress, my makeup, forcing myself to be excited. I should have listened to the dread in my stomach. Because while I was getting ready to walk down the aisle, Kate and Jeremy were getting ready too. Just not for my wedding. Standing at the altar, I scanned the aisle. Guests, eyes on me, all waiting. My chest tightened with excitement and nervousness. Then Paul appeared, his face pale, eyes avoiding mine. "Jeremy," I began. Paul held up his hand. He can't come. I'm here with a message from him." I blinked. "What do you mean he can't come?" "He left," Paul said softly, "with Kate." My knees gave out, guests gasped. Whispers filled the room. My parents froze. Kate, of course, wasn't in sight, smugly absent, probably watching. I dropped my bouquet. My dream wedding became a nightmare in seconds. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just betrayal. It was a plan my own sister had been orchestrating. Photos were being taken, everyone starring. My parents tried to comfort me, but their eyes avoided the truth. Kate had stolen my groom. The whispers were merciless. "Didn't you see the signs? How could he do this? Is this your fault?" I wanted to disappear, to vanish, but instead a fire ignited in me. Because as Paul turned to leave, I swore I would make both Jeremy and Kate pay, one day. I didn't cry at first. I just sat in the empty chapel, alone, clutching the bouquet. Bate and Stephen didn't leave my side. "This isn't the end," Bate whispered. "I feel broken," I admitted, "and angry." Stephen leaned closer. "Good. Let that anger become your weapon. One day they'll regret underestimating you." I didn't know how or when, but revenge had already planted its seed. Weeks passed. I rented a small apartment and cut contact with Jeremy and Kate. Then I met Maxwell, a nightclub owner. Powerful, charming, and utterly different from Jeremy. He restored my confidence, showing me I didn't need a man to complete me, yet having him by my side reminded me of my strength. Little did they know, rebuilding my life was the first step in the plan they would never see coming. At my father's 60th birthday, 3 years after the wedding disaster, I saw them. Jeremy and Kate, together, flawed, tension behind their forced smiles. Rumors of Kate cheating, Jeremy doubting, arguments hidden from everyone, the perfect facade cracking. I smiled internally. They were vulnerable. And I had been waiting for this exact moment. Watching Kate and Jeremy from across the room, I noticed how tense they were. Stolen glances, tight smiles, whispered arguments. I had spent years imagining their perfect life after the elopement. I thought they'd be happy. I thought Jeremy would realize his mistake. But no, they were already cracking, and that weakness was all I needed. Bate nudged me. "See that? That's your opening." I smiled, keeping it subtle. I didn't need to confront them, not yet. The goal was to watch, wait, and let their arrogance self-destruct. I realized then that the seeds of their downfall were already planted, and it was only a matter of time before they sprouted. Maxwell and I started attending events where Jeremy and Kate were likely to appear. I didn't approach them directly. Instead, I sowed doubt through subtle remarks, questions, and strategic coincidences that made people notice cracks in their perfect image. Jeremy frowned at gossip that he didn't see coming. Kate's forced smiles began to falter. I felt a thrill. Watching them unravel without touching them physically was intoxicating. And I wasn't even halfway done. I discovered that Kate had been cheating for months, long before the elopement. Jeremy didn't know, my parents didn't know, but I did. This information was explosive. It could ruin her reputation, destroy Jeremy's illusions, and shatter the life they had tried to build at my expense. I didn't confront them yet. I wanted them to crumble naturally. Their arrogance would make them take every wrong step. Because revenge isn't just about retaliation, it's about timing, and I had perfected mine. Maxwell didn't know the full story yet, but his presence gave me confidence. Together, we hosted events, mingled in high society circles, and subtly shifted attention. People started noticing Kate's insecurities, Jeremy's doubts, and my newfound strength. I watched as my life and Maxwell's influence slowly created a ripple that reached them. Little did they know, the ripple was about to become a tidal wave. My father's upcoming anniversary party presented the perfect opportunity. I received the invitation knowing Kate and Jeremy would be there. This wasn't coincidence. I had checked, planned, and ensured they would attend. This was my stage, my chance to show them that the girl they thought they destroyed was stronger, smarter, and ready to claim her power back. The moment I stepped into that room, everything would change, and there would be no turning back. The night of my father's anniversary arrived. I wore a sleek black dress, simple yet commanding. My heels clicked across the marble floor, turning heads without trying. Jeremy and Kate were there, the picture of smugness, unaware of what was coming. I caught their eyes for a brief second, their expressions froze. I wasn't the same naive girl they had abandoned years ago. Bate and Stephen flanked me, giving subtle nods. Maxwell stayed in the background, confident, observant. Every step I took, every smile I flashed was calculated. This wasn't a confrontation yet, it was a statement. And in that moment, I knew the first cracks were about to appear in their perfect little world. Conversations started. Hints dropped. Mutual friends mentioned seeing Jeremy with another woman, carefully framed to look like Kate was lying to him. I stayed calm, composed, the perfect hostess, but inside, a storm raged. Jeremy's hand tightened on his glass. Kate's forced smile faltered. The whispers weren't loud, but they were enough. Bate leaned over. They're listening. I nodded. Let them listen. Let them squirm. Because tonight, humiliation would arrive quietly, and it would grow louder with every word. Jeremy's behavior shifted subtly. He laughed less, frowned more, and asked questions he shouldn't have been asking. Kate tried to cover for herself, but the cracks showed in her body language, twitching, avoiding eye contact, biting her lip. I caught Jeremy staring at me briefly, curiosity, suspicion, and something else I couldn't quite name. He began to wonder if the life he thought he had with Kate was built on lies. And those doubts, they were exactly what I had been waiting for. A mutual friend dropped the bomb at the event, a subtle mention of Kate's infidelity, casually framed, loud enough for the right ears. Jeremy's jaw tightened. Kate turned pale. My heart raced with a mix of satisfaction and adrenaline. I said nothing, smiled politely, and watched the aftermath quietly unfold. They didn't know who had orchestrated this moment, and the revelation was about to get far more personal. I left the party feeling victorious. Not because I had humiliated them yet, but because the groundwork was laid. Jeremy was questioning, Kate was insecure, my parents still oblivious, and my reputation stronger than ever. Maxwell held my hand. Are you ready for the next step? I smiled, cold and calculated. Oh, they won't know what hit them. Because revenge, like fire, is slow at first, then unstoppable. I spent weeks observing their patterns. Every outing, every friend they met, every public post on social media, nothing escaped my notice. Maxwell helped subtly, using his network to ensure the right whispers reached the right ears. Nothing overt, no violence, no confrontation, just exposure, timing, and pressure. Jeremy was visibly unsettled. Kate tried controlling the narrative, but the cracks were widening. Even my parents began noticing subtle differences, fleeting doubts about their golden child. And I knew, at this pace, the house of cards they built would collapse on their own. A casual comment at a nightclub, "Funny, some people aren't who they seem in private," reached mutual friends of Kate and Jeremy. Soon, other murmurs followed. Stories of late-night meetings, suspicious texts, and unexplained absences. Nothing definitive, but enough to plant doubt in Jeremy's mind. Kate's confident posture faltered. Jeremy's questions grew sharper. The tension was deliciously visible. They didn't know who was behind the whispers, and that ignorance would cost them. Maxwell's influence went beyond support. One night, during a charity gala, he casually introduced me to a journalist friend, hinting at anonymous tips regarding a high-profile betrayal, the kind that could ruin reputations quietly but effectively. I didn't need to speak. Maxwell's subtle push did the work. By the next week, rumors began circulating online, carefully, strategically, just enough for Jeremy to start doubting everything. Kate had no idea her perfect image was about to shatter publicly. Jeremy began questioning small things, unexplained messages, mutual friends, cryptic remarks, and subtle inconsistencies in Kate's stories. He confronted her, softly at first, trying to preserve their image. Kate reacted defensively, masking panic with anger. I observed quietly from a distance, a small smile on my lips. The tension between them was reaching a boiling point. And the next misstep would make everything explode, in front of everyone they knew. At a high-profile party, a friend dropped a casual story about Kate's cheating, loud enough for Jeremy, and a small circle of witnesses to hear. Jeremy froze, staring at Kate. Kate's smile faltered. My heart raced. This was the payoff I'd been waiting for, subtle humiliation turning into undeniable exposure. The room buzzed with curiosity, glances darting between them. Kate tried damage control, but the evidence, perception, and timing were now against her. And in that moment, I realized the final act of revenge was within reach, and it would be unforgettable. Every rumor, every subtle exposure, every whispered secret had led to this night. I attended the charity gala, poised, calm, radiant. Kate and Jeremy were there too, unaware that every friend, every journalist, every influencer in the room already had a clear picture of their lies. Maxwell stayed beside me, supportive but silent. We didn't need words. The room itself would do the talking. I caught Jeremy's eye. His expression had changed. Fear, confusion, disbelief. Kate's face was pale, tension radiating from her like heat. Tonight, the world would see what I had been building for years, and they wouldn't escape it. During the cocktail hour, a mutual friend subtly mentioned seeing Kate in compromising situations, enough to make Jeremy's jaw tighten and his eyes widen. Kate's polite smile slipped. Panic took its place. She tried to explain, but her words sounded hollow, rehearsed, and false. I stood nearby, calm, observing the crumbling illusion of the perfect couple. I didn't need to speak. The whispers, the evidence, and the timing were perfect. And this was only the beginning. The real blow would come soon. Jeremy confronted Kate quietly in a corner, his voice low but sharp. Their conversation escalated as I watched from a distance. Kate's defensive, controlling persona began to crack. Friends who overheard exchanged shocked glances. The perfect facade she had carefully maintained for years was disappearing in real time. I felt a thrill unlike anything before. Patience, timing, and planning had turned into undeniable power. And I wasn't done yet. The final act, the one they'd never see coming, was about to unfold. At the peak of the gala, I approached Jeremy and Kate with Maxwell by my side. I smiled, cold and calm, the picture of composure. "Funny," I said, voice steady, "how things turn out when lies are exposed." The room went silent. Kate's mouth opened, closed. Jeremy stared. I revealed evidence of Kate's ongoing manipulations, her infidelity, and the history of her schemes, all verified, undeniable. Gasps filled the room. Friends, colleagues, and family watched as the truth became impossible to deny. Kate's arrogance crumbled. Jeremy's confusion turned to regret. The final moment had arrived, and my last laugh was seconds away. I stepped back, letting the room absorb the devastation. Kate turned red, then pale, then furious. Jeremy could only stare. I smiled. You thought you could ruin me, take everything and walk away unscathed. But every lie, every betrayal, every small cruelty, it came back to you. Maxwell took my hand. They underestimated you, he whispered. I looked at Jeremy, then Kate, then the shocked crowd. I'm stronger than you ever imagined, and now everyone sees who you really are. Kate's screams, Jeremy's shame, my parents' silent disbelief. It was perfect. I had turned heartbreak into power, humiliation into triumph. I walked away with Maxwell, leaving them to face the ruin they created themselves. Because the best revenge isn't rage. It's precision, patience, and letting them destroy themselves while you stand victorious.